Good morning, the chairman, residential communications team, and members of the team. Good morning, the group, the chief executive officer, NNPC Limited. Good morning, GED, Gas and Power, GED Downstream, GGM, CP, and S. Good morning, Senior Special Assistant to the President Office of the Chief of Staff. At the unveiling of the new Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited on Tuesday, July 19, 2022, President Muhammadu Buhari said the NNPC will, I quote, of course, conduct itself under the best international business practice in transparency, governance, and commercial viability. He also added that, I quote, NNPC Limited is mandated by law to ensure Nigeria's national energy security is guaranteed to support sustainable growth across other sectors of the economy. Quotation closed. Today, at the 49th session of the State House briefing coordinated by the Presidential Communications team, the Group Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kyari, will provide key updates on the vision of the newly unveiled NNPC Limited, its transition to an organization, and the impact of this new company on the Nigerian oil sector, as well as the global oil industry. On this note, I would like to call on the Group Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kyari, to speak with us, as usual, for about 30 minutes, after which he will take questions from us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, particularly Oga Garba Shehu and Oga Femi, and the rest of you, Chairman, and the rest of gentlemen of the press, my colleagues, good morning. I don't know where to start from, rather than to say that it's a very, very big privilege standing before you. I know these are very tough times, but of course also it throws enormous opportunities at us in the oil and gas sector and also to our country. As you may be aware, as we all know, I don't think everybody here is well informed, that hitherto the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation is a company funded by government. Companies whose governance resides beyond the company. And also, it has a dual role of being the agency of government and also running a business. And that's clearly a complication that has made it impossible for this company to operate at its optimum over the years, the last 43 years to 44 years. So what changed? In 2000, government has initiated a program of reform in the oil and gas sector, recognizing that our governance framework was weak, it wasn't world-class, it wasn't delivering the value that is expected, and more than anything, we didn't have a national oil company that is operating commercially. And we are lagging behind. Many of the national oil companies that you are seeing today, that actually started well after us, but we didn't do the catch-up because they have something different. And what is different is that these companies have limited liability. And that's what our law did for us. The Petroleum Industry Act came and converted this company and as a matter of requirement to be a limited liability company, which means that it has no recourse to public funds. It is also owned by the 200 million Nigerians, including me and you. And not only that, there is an ownership structure that ensures that this interest is held on behalf of all of us by the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated in a manner that is supervised by the National Economic Council. It also means there's freedom to act profitably. You cannot do things that are not commercial. You have the board as the highest decision-making body of this company, which is typical of every Kama company. And also to do businesses in wide areas in the energy sector, and including non-energy businesses. All these were practically difficult to implement when you are bound under certain regulations that do not allow you to make some decisions that are requirements of the Company and Allied Matters Act. And therefore, we transited from a corporation that is fully owned by government, funded by government in all sense, and largely an agency of government, to a limited liability company that is owned by all of us, that is accountable to its board, and that is open to every scrutiny that every other company is exposed to. Typical example, even in the telecom sector, MTN, Dangote Group, and anyone that you are thinking of is open to scrutiny by the relevant institutional authorities, including the CAC, to ensure that you run this business in a manner that represents the shareholders. This was not there in the past. And therefore, what happened? In July 2021, the National Assembly passed the Petroleum Industry Act. And subsequently, on the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, Mr. President, rightly and courageously endorsed the Petroleum Industry Act and passed it to become the law of the Federation. That means now the Petroleum Industry Act. And I must emphasize that the petroleum industry is governed by two major laws in the past: the Petroleum Act, 1967, and the Petroleum Profit Tax Act, also of 1967. And may I seek this opportunity to also mention that there is no substantial change in the Petroleum Act and the Petroleum Profit Tax Act since 1967. Essentially, you are dealing with a very ancient law that does not respond to the realities of today, but we didn't have the courage to change it. Since 2000, every effort to change those legislations to ensure that we bring our regulation in line with best practice in the industry globally, and also to react to the realities of today, didn't work out. And I can tell you very, very confidently that the reason was absence of courage and actual of detachment from the realities that, yes, government can actually take up its hands from a company that can do better under a different environment. And that's why the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act is a major milestone for our country. It is changing the law that everyone else couldn't do. I think that's the best way to put it. Since 1964, no significant amendment has been made to our petroleum laws until Mr. President passed into law the Petroleum Industry Act. And that rolled into process a number of things. First of all, the law requires that we must incorporate the NNPC Limited within a certain period of time. And that we did in a very record time. And thereafter, as you will also recall, there's a cutover of the company, because when you do, you must have assets. So this company, when we incorporated, it didn't have assets. The law also requires that certain assets must be transferred to this company. And also, Mr. President, rightly also transferred the assets of the former NNPC, some of the valued assets that are clearly determined on the basis of best practice that you can find anywhere. A value was put on it, and Mr. President, in his wisdom also, transferred those assets to the NNPC Limited. That means there's a complete cutover of the NNPC as a corporation to the NNPC Limited on the 1st of July. And thereafter, the rest is history. I'm sure many of you were there when we unveiled the NNPC on the 19th of July. The meaning of this is grave, is huge, and is of substantial value to our country. What it means is that this company must have a different corporate strategy, which we have put in place. Because this is a basic requirement of the Company and Allied Matters Act and every other best practice in the energy sector. It also, you must have a different brand. You can't be what you are always and continue to reflect something else. So we put in place a different brand, which many of you have seen. And then you must have a separate business operating models. Business operating model simply means that you have to stop what you have always done. What we have always done is to respond to moments, emotions, and sometimes very often sub-commercial considerations in our decision-making process. That means you must have a definite business model that will ensure that these businesses are never run on loss. And by the way, the energy sector, specifically the oil and gas sector, isn't a loss-making business. So anytime you make losses, there is something wrong with your business model, there is something wrong with your practices. And the end result is that you will lose money. And that is why for 43 years, we are unable to declare profit. That is why NNPC didn't have the courage to publish its financial statements. And I can tell you, Mr. President also directed that what are we hiding? Why don't you tell people what you're doing? And we had the courage, with the support of Mr. President, to establish and to declare that we lost money in the year 2018. We lost 803 billion naira. And that thing to be ashamed of, because this is a product of what you have done. A product of bad governance, lack of system and processes, non-commercial decisions, and also the very fact that you are commingling commercial activities with agency roles. And they never go together. And subsequently, we put in place an apt and definite organizational structure, which means that it's a much more compressed company today, a slimmer company that it will be, it has to be. And also, because your financing partners always look out for your ability to have a system, a business model, a governance structure, and that's a basic requirement of finance. That means that it will enable us to have access to financing. And largely, and most importantly, you must have system and processes in place, which is a basic requirement of the Company and Allied Matter. But more than anything, in this industry, if you do not have the right policies, the right processes, that discretion becomes optimal, there's no way you can break even. And therefore, you must have system and processes, controls for governance that you must keep to. And that is what we did, to make sure that we put in place the right policies and processes. By the way, you may be aware that the law is clearly stipulates that these companies' interests can be diluted subsequently. The federation, the shareholders, you and me, under the guidance of the National Economic Council, that we can dilute our interests instead of having a bulk interest held on behalf of all of us. Like there can be private interests that can be held by individuals or companies in this company. And this is very, very different, because if this happens, and it will happen because this is a requirement of Section 54 of the PIA clearly stipulated that we can dilute the interests of this company. And for you to do this, you must be IPO ready. IPO ready means that you must have system, processes, organization, transparency, and also the asset to back this up, and also a business practice, a business model that supports this. And I believe very strongly with what has happened now, with the things that has been done so far, that I believe that by the middle of next year, this company will be IPO ready, and we can dilute the interests of this company. And of course, you can't do this except you have clear vision and mission as a company, and core values. Of course, our ambition is to be the dynamic global company of choice. Today, companies and individuals have choices. As you already seen in the global space, geopolitical issues that are coming up, people have choices. People decide where they want to acquire energy from. And therefore, you must have the reliability of supply, the ability to manage pricing, and also ultimately that your partners can see that it's a long-term partnership that they can have with you. And therefore, when you do this, you can now become the global company of choice. But you cannot do this except you have integrity, you perform in an excellent manner, and also you have sustainable practices. Sustainability is everything today. You can get things out today, you can make profit today, but profits must be sustainable. Delivery of energy must be sustainable. People must see this. And more than anything, it must be clear that you are following a path that recognizes the realities of today, which is climate change. So by the way, Climate change is real, energy transition is real, but it must be just. And it's probably not a moment to speak about this, but we are doing everything possible, first of all, to provide the energy of today as we continue to build the capacity and ability to create sustainable energy through our new energy initiative. And you will see this. And therefore, if we do this, we will be able to reliably deliver energy while continuously creating value for our stakeholders and our shareholders particularly, which is all of us in this country. And is it possible to break from the past? Yes, it is. As I mentioned, we lost 803 billion naira in 2018, and we published it. I'm sure you must have seen those reports, and they are still on our webpage. By 2019, we were able to cut down those losses to just 2.3 billion naira. And by end of 2020, financial 20, we have published our financial statement audited by the best of class financial institutions. You can check this. And we made a profit of 287 billion naira. And I can tell you, 2021 accounts are ready. We're only waiting for governance and processes because of the very fact that we're a Kama company, and we'll publish it. And I can tell you we did better than year 2020. But as we do this, one major thing that is real is energy poverty in our country. And there's no way you can close that gap except you focus on what you have. And what we have is enormous gas resources that we have in this country. As a matter of fact, this country is a gas country, not an oil country. This country has enormous resources. We have always focused on the liquids. We have always focused on today so that we can have the cash that will continue to things that we have always done over the years, but without focusing on the new energy sources. And the only way you can achieve this is to make sure that you access the gas resources that you have. And that is why, since this government comes, several projects have been delivered. Gas delivery projects, some are ongoing. We have commissioned NNPC directly, our IGF facility in Benin. Our IKK project is on course and will deliver it by first quarter of next year. We are also progressing the Trans-Morocco pipeline and also the Trans-Saharan pipeline, which is also in the media. I'm sure you have seen this. This is long-term. It's not for today, but I can tell you that the world needs it. And that connections are necessary. And those infrastructures, because we never focus on it, it has always been what I call on the PowerPoint, and that it must come on the table, and it's now on the table. That we have access to financing for them, we have partnership that will work. There's a greater trust for our country, and I can tell you this, there's a greater trust for our country in the international sphere, in the consumer market space. As you might have seen, several engagements have taken place with the European Union Economic Energy Commission, and very many other stakeholders that too many to mention in this platform, that people now think that we're serious, that we can deliver this. As we do this, first and foremost, we deliver gas into domestic market. As we speak today, we are unable to meet the growing demand for gas in our country. Very many reasons. First of all, we have failed to bring in the infrastructure that is required in the last 20, 30 years. No need to lament. But what can we do today? What we're doing today is to increase supply into the domestic market such a way that gas-based industries can come up. We can provide gas to power. We're already doing this. We're already meeting the basic requirements, but we know we're not there. And there are several things that we are doing to get through the actions of government. Government has decided that this is a decade of gas. More than anything, there's a gas expansion program which has specific targets in the upstream so that the gas will be available, building the infrastructure that is required, and also supporting the industries that will necessarily take this gas to either to convert them to other materials that can be of use or to create power. And I think this is work in progress, but clearly we have a line of sight around what is happening. And by the way, you are also aware that what has defied all logic, that is to bring on board the Trend 7 FID. We are able to deliver this in year 2019. This is very possible. This is very practical reality that you can do more than this. As we speak now, there are several other LNG projects that are in the offing now. A number of people, because of the new trust that they have, that they think they can do business with us. They believe that we can make decisions. They believe that we have access to the assets that are necessary for this. And that's why we're seeing a number of floating LNG projects that we're already engaging. And I'm very, very confident that as we close, you will see this happening and that this country will benefit from its enormous gas resources. Needless to bother you, these are just pictures, work in progress. I invite you at your convenience. Maybe Ms. Ogafemi and Ogashe will help us to see. If you want, we can take you so that you see what is going on. It's not picture. It's real. We can take you there so that you can see the progress we have made both on the AKK pipeline, the OB3 line, and very many other gas infrastructure projects that we're running today now, and that probably not the right moment to bother you with it, but it's real. I'm inviting you to join me so that we can go and take a look at it. And of course, big question, everybody will say, why are you importing petroleum product? Yeah, because you are not processing internally. Needless to lament again, our refineries are not functioning today. We deliberately shut them down because it didn't make any further sense for you to take in, example, $100 oil into a refinery and the product it brings out is $70. This is for very many reasons, very many years of neglect that has crystallized into an inability of this plant to perform optimally. It's still lamentation. We are not absorbing ourselves from that responsibility or that liability. It is real. But what is very, very obvious is that the very fact that this company wasn't operating as a business was the key reason, because decisions cannot be made. Sometimes, even to put in place a contract to replace a part will take you 10 months to do. And the refineries don't wait for you. And overall, you ended up having a situation where you are unable to make it optimally processed, and we shut it down. And now, we are very confident that we are restoring it back to at least 90% of their installed capacities. We already have contracts in place, contractors. I will also invite you at your right time, I will discuss with the chairman, so you can come and see what is happening in Port Harcourt Refinery. We will get it back. We will get it back to normalcy. We will run it as a business. As a matter of fact, we borrowed money to fix it. We didn't take petroleum money. We are borrowing money to fix it because borrowers will not lend you money. Lenders, will not give you money except they are sure that you can return it. And the payment for that is tied to the productivity of that refinery. And that means that something must change. And what did we change? We are not going to operate it. We are going to have an O&M mechanism. It means operation and maintenance contractor will run it. We will not run it because that's a basic requirement of the lending. The lender said, no, we can't trust you at this point in time to run it, except you decide through a transparent process, put in place an O&M contractor, then we can lend you money. And that's why as we complete, we will hand over to the O&M contractor, both for Kaduna and for Refinery. And I'm sure this will be a different story. For a business, we think that this is the right thing to do. As a matter of fact, very, very few companies operate refineries on their own. They will always take an O&M contractor. This is what we didn't do in the last 43 years, and unfortunately, it's lamentation. But we're not lamenting. We'll get this done. We'll deliver on this rehabilitation exercise. And of course, needless to say, nothing political. Through our efforts, through the ability and capability of our staff, who we are very proud of, which has defied all logic, the majors have gone to the Benue Trough, to the Chad Basin, and they can't find oil. And we found oil, commercial oil, and I can also tell you there's an ongoing process to make sure that we produce this oil so that it's become of value to us. So we're very proud of this as a country, and also that it opens a new chapter in our activities, because it now means that we can expand the resources that we have, we can build the reserves that we have, and also choice of supply becomes much more easier for all of us. And of course, the downstream business is the most challenged, as you all know, today. You need assets, you need facilities. Those facilities for storage and facilities also for transportation of petroleum. As you may also be aware, because of the very unfortunate acts of vandals along our major pipelines, from Atlas Cop all the way to Ibadan, and all the others connecting all the 27 depots that we have across the country, none of them can take delivery of product today. And the reason is very simple. For some of the lines, for instance, from Warri to Bini, we haven't operated line for 15 years. Every molecule of product that you put gets lost. And of course, you remember the sad incidents of the fire incidents around, I can't remember, it's very close to Warri, it's close to Saple, that killed so many people. So we have to shut it down. And as we speak, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, just one moment. the level of losses that we have on our pipeline, product pipeline, and I'm sure you may have seen it, and I'll invite you at the right time, we can take a look at it jointly. You remember that in Lagos area, when a fire outbreak happened in one of our pipelines, now we discovered that some of the pipelines are actually connected into individuals' homes. And not only that, and without really, with all sensitivity to our religious beliefs, some of the pipelines and some of the products that we found are actually in churches and in mosques. That means that everybody is involved. There is no way you will take product, bring in trucks in populated neighborhood, load it and leave without everybody else knowing about it. That everybody includes members of the community, members of the religious leadership, and also, and most likely, government officials of all natures, including security agency personnel. They are everywhere. And we have seen this even in the Niger Delta, and I'm coming to this. And there's no way you deliver volume and then lose up to 30% and you continue to put that product on this line. So what are we doing different? First and foremost, as you can see, every slight dislocation in the transportation system today, trucks' inability to deliver product, you will see queues somewhere. This is because every day you have at least 2,500 trucks loading from different depots coming into different parts of the country. You have to do this because there's no other way of doing it. It would have been easier if the products are close to the source. For instance, if the products are by pipeline into Suleja, so what it means is that you just need maybe 30 kilometers into Abuja town. Now the trucks have to leave Lagos, Ogara, Calabar, Port Harcourt to come into Abuja before they come into Suleja before they come into Abuja. This is the reality that we're dealing with. And this is why we also decided that we don't have to continue to run this. What we have to do is to create a replacement process. And by the way, some of the pipelines have aged, no doubt. Many of them have lived their lifespan, some supposed to be 20 years, some of them are now 40 years, and they naturally give up. But more than anything, and much more difficult to manage is the issue of bundles, which cuts across every community, no exception now. In the past, people have always thought that it is between Lagos and Mosibi that you have problem, or between Warrior and Bini, or probably maybe in the east or somewhere. It's everywhere. Wherever our products have gotten to, everybody has now become some form of bundle. And so there's no exception. There is no exclusion. Wherever our facilities first, this is exactly what is happening. And what we have decided to do is to also make this private. We are building a national reserve company. This is very necessary. It's a requirement of the law. That reserve company will run those pipelines, will run the pipe facilities, but on a commercial basis. We are selecting build, operate contractors who will be able to manage this pipeline, who will be able to manage this risk in a manner that is different from today, so that ultimately products can come very close to its end users. But in the meantime, there's very little else we can do than to continue to transport on trucks. And that brings a different set of troubles, because these trucks are heavy. Some of them carry up to 60,000 liters. And that's the continuous strain on our roads. And that is why we also saw the necessity to intervene at NNPC through the the tax credit scheme. We are now building 27 roads in this country, worth over 600 billion naira. As a matter of obligation, because if we don't do this, the roads will give up. They will not be completed. There are many roads started 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that never come close. And the reason is very simple. Financing is never aptly or appropriately provided. And ultimately what we did was to intervene to see how we can close this gap, so that first and foremost, our major concern is to ensure energy security. And we believe that we are successful in this. As you can see in very many roads across the country, we don't want to make too much noise about it. I think it's important that one day you will join us to go and see how much work that is being done on behalf of the NNPC by the Federal Ministry of Work and their contractors. And we know this is happening, and that is why you don't see too many news around bad roads in the country. The reason is very simple. NNPC came into it. And very, very importantly, ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, what is most difficult to manage today what is much daring for us to live with, is the issue of crude oil theft. It's real. It is happening. Are we helpless? No. We are not helpless, and our efforts are paying off. As we speak now, what you see on the screen is a typical site where crude oil is stolen and is processed in illegal refineries. And probably a selection of you one day, if you want, I will take you so that you can see it in the air, see what it really means. I hope by the time we get there, we have taken them out, because we will not stop so that you can see it. If it is tomorrow, you will still see it, because they are still there. What you see here is so common around the pipeline that I can tell you in one line, just less than 200 kilometers, we had 295 illegal connections. And you'll see the data, 295. It's impossible for any oil company to continue to operate. No one produces oil so that the next person will take it. And I'm sure maybe some of us are in some kind of business. I hope not. I don't. If you produce and somebody takes all the production, the wise thing to do is to stop the production. You can't continue to produce. This is really what is happening. And what did we do? We intervened with the help of the government security agencies. By the way, Mr. President's directives were very clear. Go and sort this out, clear it, take it out, and bring back normalcy. And on the basis of that, the Chief of Defense Staff was directed to lead us in a process that will ensure that intervention comes both kinetic and non-kinetic interventions, including engagement of communities, engagement of private contractors, engagement technology. But I'm not sure it's the right platform to discuss this, but we have a control center, maybe also a select few of you can come, and I'll show you what we are doing. And some of this video that you see being passed around Saudi Aramco, well, yes, we haven't got close to this, but we have something that is resembling this, and I can show you where we do. We are not making too much noise about it. But as a result of those activities, we have so far, with the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Army, the Department of State Service, and other agencies of government in the security network, there are arrests of about 11 vessels have been arrested, 30 speedboats have been arrested, 179 wooden boats that you have seen, the type that I've just shown you, and then about 37 trucks. And as a matter of what we do now is we don't arrest them, we burn them. And that's what happens, so that they won't come back to business again. And there are arrests. Currently, there are 122 arrests by different agencies of government, and they will be prosecuted. And the prosecution process is going on. And in addition to this, the activities have brought in place the destruction of 959 metal tanks. You can see the number, the colossal number there. I'm going to show you a picture of what these tanks look like. There are ovens used in boiling. 739 of them have been destroyed and identified, and some are destroyed. Not all of them have been destroyed. There are 452 dock pits, the type that I have just shown you. There are 344 reservoirs created that we have a count of it. This is not exhaustive. This is not complete. We don't have complete sight of this. And that's why the technology level is coming. And we'll surprise them that every inch of this land where our assets are will be seen at every moment in time, and actions can be taken. And also, there are 355 cooking pots. This is enormous. It simply means destruction of the environment. More than anything, yes, we do know that we have lost revenue, we have lost opportunities, we have lost money as a country, but more than anything, what this has done to the environment, in some cases, probably cannot be retrieved anymore. The level of damage that has caused. And the members of community, and I must say this, very many people believe that, the community people are involved. Not at all. It's a very, very insignificant minority that is involved in this. The communities are the victims. If you go to this community, you will see that they are in difficulty. They can't have access to clean water. They can't go fishing. They cannot go to the farm. And sometimes they are forced by these criminals to act in a manner that is illegitimate. And that's why we are working with them to rescue them from this bondage. And more than anything, to rescue the environment. And ultimately, of course, it is very correct also that our businesses will be restored. There will be resources available for the rest of the country to to benefit from, every one of us to benefit from. Just to show you, one of the vessels arrested, so it's not joke. This is real. If you like, I can text some of you so that I can board it and see what it means. So if you come, this level of vessels, parading and stealing, you can see the level of damage that is causing. And I must commend the Nigerian Navy for doing a very, very effective work. And we believe very strongly this moment that the majority of the marine activities are largely curtailed. I will not say it is a zero situation because it is impossible to have a zero situation, and technology will help us bring it to zero. And what you see here is the connections, and maybe one day probably I'll invite some of you to also join us. These are the connections that you are seeing. If you see a pipe of this nature, the second picture that you are seeing, that if somebody can connect this, you need at least 40 people to be there. You need cranes, you need equipment, you need generating sense for you to be able to do this. That means this is happening to the knowledge of everyone. And that is why what we are doing there has taken it off. And I'm very proud to say this moment, in collaboration with our government security agencies, our partners, that one of our lines, and I don't want to mention so that they don't go back and start on it, that we have almost recovered it fully. And we'll see production coming on those lines. Of course, what it means, for you to take down one site, and I just want you to visualize this. So you need a swam buggy. Typically what it means is it's a crane that can move on swam and water. That's really what it means. For you to go to every location where you have these refineries to take them down. And that's huge work. And this is what we are doing with the government security agencies, with the support of our partners and all of us and the community members. And we'll scale it up. Because there's no other way of doing it, because what you are seeing now, this is the environment. You can see the grasses have gone. And this will continue to seep into the subsurface, and ultimately it will affect drinking water. And you can do nothing else except to excavate. And the process of the cleaning up is a very cumbersome process. You have seen what is happening in the organic cleanup for very many years, how difficult it is, how almost sometimes even impossible to execute. To have a cleanup of a place of the size of Ogoni. Now imagine this is happening around the entire pipeline network in the Niger Delta region. It's a huge challenge, and we must stop it. Of course, just to show you that we don't just arrest, our government security, we're very proud of what they are doing. Once they get these refineries or the vessels or the boats, they arrest them down so that they don't come back tomorrow. It has its complications. We're very conscious of this, but it's cheaper to do this in the overall interest of the environment and our people than to continue to pull all them together. There's nothing you can do with it. You cannot pull them together. There are no production system. There's nowhere you can take it to. And the only way you can do it is to burn it up. Yes, we do know that it has consequence on the environment, but it's of lesser proportion than pulling them together and keeping them in one place. This is just for you to see more of it. But as I told you, I'm sure everybody is talking about the Saudi. Even as I was coming here, 3 or 4 people forwarded me the video from the Saudi Aramco Control Center. And I've personally been there. And the reason is people think that why can't we see what is happening? So I can also tell you that we have put up a control system. Yes, not the scale of the Saudi Aramco. We're just starting. We started it this year, April. And by now I can tell you we have some visibility around nearly everything we are, particularly on the security platforms and very many of our security operational platforms. We can see them now. We are cooperating with our partners so that every data that is available is visible to us, and that we can control them, we can intervene remotely, and ultimately that people will now start sending our own pictures to people, not the Saudi Aramco picture. So we're not harassed by this because we're clearly on a pathway that is taking us to that level. So we have visibility around our operations. We have visibility around the marine environment. We know where our assets are. We have access to data and cameras on those assets, and ultimately, once the production systems are hooked on, it's simply what Saudi Aramco is doing. It's not rocket science. It is just access to data and have access to controls, and I wouldn't think it's rocket science. We're already getting it done, and I will invite a few of you to join me to visit that center. And of course, to stop crude oil theft, you definitely need everybody to act. People speak always about theft, so everybody has to act, all of you here. and everyone that is listening to me this moment, we can help stop it. Incidences happen near our communities. Once you see this, tell us. There's a secure platform we have created. We're already getting feedback, enormous feedback, and our government security agencies are working on it. We're not just following the list, we're also following the cash. And I can confirm to you this moment that you'll see more things will happen. And I'm sure you've heard this statement made by the National Security Advisor. It's not an empty talk. It is real. We mean it. And we know that people are involved. The 122 people that I have mentioned, they have names. We know them. At the right moment, they will be disclosed. But to tell you, beyond this also, not just the small rats that we arrest at the locations, we are going after everyone else. And I can tell you that the EFCC and the NFIU, all of them are on the trail of the cash. So they will find the cash, and they're already finding the cash. And this will be put on the table, and ultimately we'll see the relief that we require. And nobody will be covered. And of course, needless to say, that this compromise, it cuts across board. There are oil company workers, maybe even NNPC workers. There are government security workers that some of them have been arrested. There are people from the oil companies. There are people who are from the communities, and also high flyer, sometimes even one of the right word, elites of the society, and government is going after them, and will get them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Group CEO of NNPC Limited. I'm sure we are impressed with this presentation. It's very soon we will not be spreading pictures from Saudi Aramco. It will be pictures from NNPC Limited. Let's give him a round of applause for that as we look forward to that. Sir, as usual, we'll take questions 4 in a row, 4 in a batch, after which you, please, after this event, the President has an event, and some of the PCT will have to be at that event. So we'll try to conclude latest in 30 minutes. The chairman says we should start from the right today. So MITV takes the first question, Choji takes the second one, Reuters takes the third one, and Silverboard takes the fourth one.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Folashade Abdusalami. I report for MITV. Mr. GMD, I must, anyone. Your presentation was quite impressive. My concern is on fuel importation. It would have been the question that when will the federal government stop importation? But I'm happy you talked about it, that the process of rehabilitation of the refineries are ongoing. And you noted that that of the Port Harcourt is about 90% in conclusion. My question now is, you said again that we'll need to borrow money, that you are borrowing money to do this. How much are we looking at for the borrowing? Where are you borrowing from? And when is Nigerian? When will the completed repairs be delivered so that we'll be out of fuel importation? Thank you.
CEO, sir, I must commend your company for doing so well so far. I'm impressed that you are making efforts to construct the Sahara pipeline. But I'm also curious to know why you are able to do that, yet you are not able to reconstruct the vandalized pipelines that transport products to all parts of the country. Thank you.
My name is Felix Unwa from Reuters. Is NNPC worried that the delays to asset sales, such as Exxon surplus, will in one way or the other hinder investments in oil and gas sector? And then,
all right, good morning, sir. My name is Onduna Ingia. Well, my concern basically has to do with energy security. Just to draw a quick comparison, recently we saw the arrest of a major security agent who was involved in drug business by the NDLEA. Now, it's hard to imagine that for a country that has suffered this level of setback in the oil and gas industry, has still not put out names of people or made significant arrests of persons who are involved. And just a few minutes ago, yes, you made mention that arrests have been made, but then to restore public confidence, don't you think NNPC should quickly reveal the identities of these people? Because to some extent, it has turned into a political affair. You hear one governor calling out security agents, you hear security agents coming out to defend, and you are saying a different thing here. So how soon are we going to see these actions taken by the NNPC and the federal government? Thank you.
First of all, let me correct something. I didn't say Port Harcourt Refinery is 90% completed. I said that we'll restore them to 90% of installed capacity. That's the minimum we'll deliver. Thank you very much. And then, of course, you asked a question around borrowing for the refinery. We're borrowing from the Afrexim Bank. And we also borrowed $1 billion for this purpose. Thank you very much. I hope this answers your question. And gentlemen from VOA, why are we not able to reconstruct our pipeline, yet we are now embarking on construction of gas pipelines to other countries? If you had me clear, what I said is that we are doing every one of them concurrently. We are not leaving any one of them. And as you are aware, gas is the next transition fuel globally. Is where your money will come from. You will be stranded with your oil in another 30 years, but you won't be stranded with gas even in 50 years to come. And that's why we're building those infrastructure to make sure that Nigerians of tomorrow will be able to benefit from these resources today, while we're also constructing our pipeline. As I mentioned, we're doing a build, operate, and transfer program for the pipeline networks, and we're replacing them. So we have not abandoned them. Then the gentleman from Reuters, he said delay in asset sale will hinder investment in the oil and gas sector. By the way, divestment is the right of any partner. As a matter of fact, the Petroleum Industry Act allows the government even to divest its interest in the joint ventures today. So anyone can divest interest in any business. But divestment always has rules, has processes. We are now NNPC Limited. We're a commercial company. We will do everything possible to protect our commercial interests, and that will have nothing to do with stifling investment in the industry, because we already have structure and processes that are in place to ensure that these assets continue to produce. So nothing has stopped. Change of ownership doesn't stop business. And then, of course, the gentleman from Silverbat, you asked why haven't we named the people who are involved in this. I told you there are 122 arrests. I'm sure you are also very, very obvious that it is not NNPC that will make announcement of criminals and culprits. But I know that names exist. They will be named, but definitely the most important thing to do is to prosecute them and show to the world that it's wrong to do this, and that if you do, the law will catch up with them. But the most important thing for us to follow through is to make sure that there is prosecution, and once they are prosecuted, they will be lined up, and everybody will see them, no matter who they are.
Second batch. Farouk. Well, as we usually say, at the right time, you will harmonize your questions. Four now. After four, there will be two next. Who are the lucky ones? TVC, Farouk, Leon.
If you will let us do quick, we can still take another.
Exactly. As I said, TVC, Farouk, Leon, and Bloomberg.
Hello. All right, good afternoon, sir. My name is Femi Akonde from TVC News. Yes, sir. Some people have said that commercializing the NNPC is a step in the right direction, but TVC News. Yeah, commercializing the NNPC is a step in the right direction, but it is only, are you with me, CEO? Should I go ahead, sir? All right, sir, but they say it's only half-baked until the shares of the NNPC are listed on the Nigerian stock market. How soon will that happen? Thank you. Who's next?
My name is Hassan Umar Farouk. I report for Liberty Radio and Television. CEO, sir, my question is, you made mention of the refineries now are being rehabilitated. But recently there is a newspaper report that the staffs of those refineries were paid 136 billion in salaries and allowances. I want to know if there is wisdom, what's the wisdom behind, if there is any justification for that when there is no production taking place in those refineries.
Leon.
Okay.
Thank you so much. My name is Leon, Dr. Leon Usigbe of the Nigerian Tribune. Many Nigerians are unable to reconcile the notion that the NNPCL is now an independent company, but with its board appointed by government. I hope we can have clarity to that. Then, but my question is, NNPC says it will now make its remittances to FAC through royalties and dividends. And we know that NNPC, maybe the defunct NNPC, is owing several billions in remittances to FAC. I'm just wondering whether these outstanding remittances owned by the defunct NNPC will be accommodated in the new arrangement in the form of your planned remittances in royalties and dividends. Thank you, sir.
Well,
Ruth.
Leon smuggled in two questions. Let's not do that again. Please, one question.
My name is Ruth. I write for Bloomberg, and my question is on the National Reserve Company that you mentioned. You said, I want to know if there's a timeline for that, for the creation of the company, and how much are you looking at for the contract that is going to be implemented on that? How much would that be? And I'm sorry, I have a follow-up to the question, so,
Please, can you repeat your question?
so my first question is on the...
One question.
The question is... okay, the question is on the National Reserve Company that you mentioned. How much... what's the timeline for the company that is going to be... that you're building on? And the the question still on that is that how much, you talked about build, operate contracts and stuff like that. How much in investment are you looking to make on that? And sorry, since Mr. Additional said I can ask. So my follow-up is on the Seplat deal. I want to know if NNPC made a counter offer to that to take the shares in ExxonMobil. And also, why is NNPC opposing that bid in the first place?
Okay, I think I can take this one. I have 4 now, but maybe 5. There are 5 really. And for Lasha there, I just didn't, I think I see why you are raising your hands, when would importation of petroleum product end? No, that's the one I missed, except you are bringing a new question. Okay, thank you very much. First, let me answer the issue around stoppage of importation of petroleum product. Even if all our 4 refineries in 3 locations, by the way, I'm sure you are aware that in Port Harcourt you have 2 refineries, are operating at 90% of installed capacity, they will only be able to raise 18 million liters of petroleum motor spirit, PMS of petrol. That means that even if all of them are working today, you will still have a net deficit of PMS to import into this country. This is what it means. Because our population has grown, demand has grown, the middle class has grown, I'm sure everybody here owns 1 or 2 cars, and so on and so forth, and as such that the volume of petroleum motor spirit required in this country has grown almost exponentially, because there is clearly an exponential growth in our ability our needs for petroleum motor spirit. So even if they all come back, you're not going to stop importation of petroleum product. But happily also, NNPC owns 20% equity in the Dangote Refinery. And not only that, and we're very proud of this, we are not only owning 20% equity, we have the first right of refusal to supply crude oil into that plant. But we saw this energy transition challenge coming. We knew that time will come when you will look for people who will buy your crude oil you will not find. And that means that we have locked down ability to sell crude oil for 300,000 barrels minimum by right for the next 20 years. And also, by right also, we have access to 20% of the production from that plant. That means that whatever it does, we have a right to take 20% of that production as part of our equity. And this refinery, if it does come up, and it will come up because we are on the board of that company now, we know what is happening now, that it will come on stream latest by the mid of next year. Projection is first quarter, but we think that it can come up latest by the end of mid of next year. If it does, this refinery alone, because it has 650,000 per barrel capacity and a different technology, which means that it can crack the crude in a manner that you can have more gasoline than a typical refinery. That means that that refinery has ability to produce up to 50 million liters of PMS. So the combination of that and our own ability to bring back our refinery will completely eliminate any importation of petroleum product into this country next year. You will not see any importation into this country next year. This is very practical. This is possible. As a matter of fact, when we are done with our own refineries and the Dangote refinery, very many other small initiatives that we are doing, small modular condensate refineries that we are building, if that happens, and we are very optimistic it will happen, you will see that this country will now be a net exporter. As a matter of fact, it will be a hub of export of petroleum product, not just to the West African sub-region, but to the rest of the world. This will happen. The flow of supply will change. By middle of next year, it will change. So you will have no need for importation of petroleum product into this country by middle. I don't know this. I think this combination answers all your questions. Thank you very much. Then back to TVC Femi. It's how soon will shares be listed? I hope you are not going to borrow money today to buy shares. But for you to list shares, you must be IPO ready. IPO ready means that you must have system and processes. You must have governance, you must have assets, you must have the correct and indisputable valuation that the potential buyers will see, the stock exchange will demand for all this, and then ultimately you can now list your shares. And that is why I said earlier when I was speaking, that we will be IPO ready by the middle of next year. It means that we'll have system, processes, policies, governance, assets that we can show, valuation that are reliable, that people can test, as we already have today, and also the right kind of governance structure, and also a risk management system. That are basic requirements of IPOs, and all this will be ready by the middle of next year, and at the choice of its shareholders, that it can be listed at any time, because the law section 54 of the PI is clearly said that you can dilute the interest of this company by its shareholder. The shareholders are the 200 million Nigerians, represented in today's context by the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and the Ministry of Finance. Very understandable, and that ties to the question from the lady from Bloomberg, I think. Yes, she was asking, somebody asked why the board, it's Leon, Dr. Leon, sorry, I remember. Yeah, Dr. Leon asked the question, why would the board be appointed by government? Board of companies are always appointed by shareholders. Shareholders are always represented. This is typical. If anyone here doesn't own a company, just go and try to incorporate a company. They will tell you that you must have shareholders. Those shareholders will appoint the board of those companies. In today's context, the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and Ministry of is holding in trust for the Federation, but they cannot do anything except the shareholders of record agree, which is the 200 million Nigerians, and that is why the PIA provided for a leverage of the National Economic Council to have a say in this process. And therefore, the board of the companies by law is required that Mr. President appoints the board of these companies on behalf of all of us. That whenever you dilute interest, even if it is 10% interest in these companies, that right for government to appoint vanishes automatically. It now becomes a matter for the shareholders, which includes private owners of this company will do. So this will come, Dr. Leon. Not today's context, we are transiting, but as soon as you hear we are ready for IPO, it's all over also. The board will be appointed by the shareholders, which will include private equity holders. And let me just follow up to answer your question around remittances to FAC in the historical NNPC. To the best of our knowledge, we have reconciled our position with FAC. We have no liabilities that we are carrying forward to this new company. And as a matter of fact, and it's very popular now, NNPC is not remitting any money to the Federation account. That is very correct. But what is also never mentioned is that we are providing petroleum metal spirit to this country as a matter of a commercial relationship between us and this federation, all of us, that we are paying market price for petroleum motor spirit, as we all know. We all know, if some of you buy EJO, you will know that EJO price is not always far from PMS price, and you know what the price of PMS is. So whenever you do this, and you sell at some market price, and once there is no direct payments to any company, then the only way we can recover that cost is for us to hold back our fiscal obligations, which is taxes and royalties, so that we can use it to breach that payment that we are doing on behalf of all of us, and as a matter of responsibility, as a matter of law, if you may know. The Appropriation Act clearly provided for subsidy on PMS. Appropriation Act is the act of the National Assembly. That means it represents all of us, and we're merely executing the provisions of the law, and there's no way you can do both of them. You cannot pay your fiscal responsibilities and also find money and pay for the PMS subsidies that we are all carrying on behalf of all of us. So it's very understandable. As a matter of fact, the level of subsidy that we are seeing because of the price differential versus the revenue that we are able to generate, which is associated with some of the crude oil thefts that I have mentioned to you, is no longer practical for our fiscal responsibility to even cover those costs. But we're managing it. We are here also by law. We are required to ensure energy security for our country. We'll do everything possible, and we have no fears around this, and we'll continue to serve this country as a company. And the National Reserve Company, every country in the world has a National Reserve Company, every country, in a different manner. And there are very many ways of doing this. One is to require petroleum product marketing companies to maintain minimum reserve in their depots on behalf of the state. Of course, that means there's a holding cost, and government will be ready to pay for that. The second way is government to directly procure those products and keep them somewhere. And that is why you have the network of the pipelines that we have and the depots that we have. The real intention is first to bring product close to its consumers, and secondly, to maintain them as national reserve locations. So we'll bring back the pipelines so that these depots will serve that purpose. We have built another depot, a reserve facility in Atlas Cove. Is due for commissioning. We have completed it. And the end result is that you will now have a network of pipelines and depots that will now manage the national reserve on behalf of all of us. It's typically a government responsibility. It can be outsourced to private companies. It can also be done by an agency of government. In some countries, it is done by the military. The military maintains the national strategic reserve of petroleum product. This is not the situation we are dealing with currently. We are establishing the National Reserve Company, which will manage on behalf of the state, and will defer to any decision the state will make in the interim. There's no contrary view around how else we can do it. And Hassan, you asked a question around why you paying salary on a refinery that is not working. This question has been raised severally in very many fora. In the National Assembly, you have two options. When you have a refinery that is not working, typically what you do is called mothballing. Is that you pull them down, bring them into crates, and ask everybody to go. And then you have security men to watch it. Otherwise, the second option you have is to keep them as we are doing. You continue to mothball them. That means that you lubricate the parts that you must lubricate. You test run some of the parts that you have to continue to run. Otherwise, the day you want it, it won't work. So it's the second option we are doing, that we have to keep it. We are not ready to bring them down into pieces. Typically, when you bring them down into crates, you never want to bring them back. But we know that we will bring them back. We know that we're working on them. And that means that you are keeping personnel to continue to do those activities. And more than anything, that the other implication is that you sack everybody that is there so that you can stop the salaries bill. And this also is a matter that has gone to the National Assembly, and the informed position that we have, even by the clear wisdom of the National Assembly, that we can't do this at this point in time. And that's why we're paying the salary. You have to keep it. But what we also did is that we have minimized that. We have moved around many of the staff to locations where they will be put into work, and we'll continue to do this as we know that ultimately the refineries will now be run on an O&M basis. So we'll have no need for this cost as we go forward. It will continue to diminish. There are retirements that are happening as a result of age and very many other considerations, and these numbers are coming down by virtue of statutory requirements that this should happen. I think I've answered all the questions of the payment.
Yes. Before, I'll take another 4. Yes, they are. Quite a number, but some of them have been answered. We'll just take 2 for now.
Okay, so let's take 4 and then take 2 online.
Yes. Please try and harmonize one question. Don't try to stretch it. CEO, sir. 2 questions. Let me just take 2 from this one's online. Bumi Adeloju says, recently there have been concerns about NNPC's alleged contract with Tompolo. Can you give an insight into the situation? Then one Patrick Oyeleke is saying, good morning, Group CEO. On the gas pipeline project, has NNPC seen investor for gas pipeline project? Who are they? And is EU country also ready to fund it? AIT, Docas, Gloria, and Business Day.
See you, sir. Very quickly. See you, sir. My name is Yemi Adebayo from AIT. I just want to quickly answer this question. I want to find out from you, is there hope? Is there hope really that Nigeria will win this war against crude oil theft? Because there are reports that people behind this are people who are highly influential in society. And you wonder, that if you're putting up this kind of efforts, these measures in place to address this, and these people are fighting back, what would be the repercussion? I just wanted to answer the question, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. I am Dorcas Bello for Viewer Television. Now, my question is related to the environment. First of all, during your presentation, there was the burning of ships, and so it's more of a concern now. What policies and regulations has this new NNPC put in place to protect the environment? And aren't there no alternatives to this burning? Because obviously this is also harmful to the environment. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next, yes. All right, so thank you, sir. My name is Tony Ailem, and I write for Business Day. So my question has to do with every year when the budget is being prepared, you have what they call the excess crude, based on the fact that the National Assembly will have their own benchmark, and federal government have their own benchmark. The new NNPC that is coming up, how will it affect this arrangement? And Nigerians' sovereign wealth, no, it's the same thing. Still talking about excess crude. We are looking at other countries have been building up stock for sovereign wealth funds and saving for the rainy day, because we know, just like you have said, that we are going to exhaust this product one day. How will also this affect the excess crude account? The sovereign wealth fund account?
Good morning. My name is Gloria Omezuke from Channels. Very quickly, the Chief of Naval Staff recently said the NNPC is conniving with vessels, and he was referring to the recent controversy about the heroic Idun vessel that went to lift crude from Apo oil field terminal. And so he said behind the scenes that NNPC actually connives with these vessels and these carriers in order to get, lift crude. Suddenly you find their names on a list that wasn't there previously. So that's on one side, but really, the question of lifting oil theft, just give clarity to that, because he also said that between 20 to 200,000 being banded out there is impracticable. So really, how much crude oil theft have we recorded? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. What I didn't call it.
Okay, please, let's take the Nation and the Sun and wrap it up. Thank you. Thank you. Nation and the Sun, please.
No. Morning, sir. My name is Juliana Taiwo of the Sun newspapers. I just want to know what you are doing to address the issue of Jet A1 shortage, since it's affecting us, and the diesel challenge. How is it being addressed? Thank you, sir.
Okay, last one.
Good morning, sir. My name is Bolaji Ogundele, and I write for the Nation newspaper. Yeah, my question has to do with the operation of the PIA. It's a law. And I think one of the things he says is that we cannot be paying subsidies on petroleum products, but we're still doing it. Does it mean PIA is in suspension, or can we be executing the law piecemeal? Thank you very much, sir. And thank you for the invitations you have given us.
Did you get his question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Dorcas, around what are we doing have we put up any policies to protect the the environment. There's no shortage of policies. First of all, we're a business. We're also regulated. There are several institutions of government, NOSDRA, Ministry of Environment, and so many other interventions. The authority, which is responsible for the downstream, and also the commission responsible for the upstream operations. There are several policies and regulations around protection of the environment. And we'll comply with all of them. But what we can't manage is when vandals come, because that is no longer operations now, it is acts of vandal. So you react to what they do. That means it's contentment and handling of what others have done, which is why there are several steps all companies do, including our company, to make sure that whenever such remediation takes place, we stop the leakage, we recover all the crude that is possible to be recovered, and we'll continue to work to make sure that we restore the refinery. As I've said earlier, the scale of what we are seeing here, no matter what you do, the reaction time for the scale of what we are seeing, is the capacity is a key issue, and we'll continue to work on it. Yes, there are policies to do this. And of course, you also asked a question, I think there's a question around alternative to the burning. So what else can we do other than burning this crude oil? What you do, you can collect them in a location, and then now take them to a refinery or take them to another vessel. Very, very complicated. If you see the statistics I gave you, you have 450 boats, all those canoes and vessels. Just imagine how you can manage this. The alternative, the solution is stop the leakage. Stop the tape, and then they'll vanish, so that you don't have to do anything. This is really the reality that we're dealing with. Then, Tony, a question around excess crude and how does the realities of the NNPC affect the excess crude account? The excess crude account, as you may be aware, is the difference between the budgeted sum and then the available resources, which sometimes, because of price changes, it can come beyond this. And it's flown into the excess crude account by the Federal Ministry of Finance, always. So it is not an NNPC activity. Our obligation is to deliver those resources to the Federation account, and they will do this. What is also different by law now, which connects to the question asked around the PIA, is that the law provides that whenever there is a royalty on price, which means that there's excess value that is delivered, it goes into the sovereign wealth fund. And also the sovereign wealth fund, by law also, can be funded either by the excess crude oil account or by any means that the National Economic Council decides to fund. So there's no limitation to how the sovereign wealth fund can be funded. But there's clear provision on the PIA that says that certain amount of money must go directly to the sovereign wealth fund. That was not there, was not there before. And Channels, I am very, very convinced that the Chief of Naval Staff is misquoted. He could not have said that NNPC is conniving to steal from the terminal. I'm very, very doubtful, and I have very fruitful and constant engagement with the Chief of Naval Staff. The vessel in question was the vessel that is arrested at Equatorial Guinea. If you recall, the vessel came too early. It should not have been here. Outside is Lakan. Vessels can come and stay in your international waters until you call them to come in. This is typical practice. It is not only this vessel that does this. It's a very, very typical process. But once vessels move into your territorial waters, then they become suspect. As at that point in time, we have said it clearly that that vessel did not have clearance. I wrote to the Chief of Naval Staff that this vessel did not have clearance, but that we knew that it is coming, but it did not have clearance. And it is also confirmed, and I'm sure you have seen this, that this vessel did not load crude oil from the Akpo terminal. This is very, very correct, but I can confirm, hold on, yes, listen. Yeah. Listen, I'm not defending the vessel. Let me tell you why vessel movement. I think it's important for all of us to also learn how vessel nominations take place. 2 weeks before you are loading, you are supposed to tell your seller, in this case NNPC or any of our partners, that in this case this vessel was actually not coming to load NNPC's oil, it's loading our partner oil. So you are supposed to declare that your vessel has been nominated. And once you nominate that vessel, NNPC will send that vessel to the terminal operator, because not every vessel can go to every terminal because of safety issues. So the vessel terminal operator must confirm to you that this vessel can come to the terminal before it can come. So typically companies nominate 2 to 3 vessels for each operation. Sometimes only one, because some vessels have history, they have gone to that terminal that they know that the operator will not refuse to accept this. So companies must nominate vessels ahead of their coming. And then a process happens. We write to the terminal, if it is our nomination, we write to the terminal operator. Once the terminal operator is okay, they will inform us. Then we will inform the regulatory authorities. In this case, the Commission, which is the regulatory authority, and the Nigerian Navy, that this vessel is known to us, it's committing a legitimate business, offer it clearance for it to go to VAT at any terminal. The vessel in question has not passed through this process before it came into our territorial waters. And the claim they made, which was debunked by the Navy and which we agree, was that they are afraid of a pirate attack. And we also know that the pirate attacks have minimized recently in our country, and those incidents are very, 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 very minimal. I'm not sure NNPC has ever or will ever facilitate stealing of crude oil. And I've said it over and over again that the process of stealing of crude oil is beyond any one individual today. It's end to end. From the producing company, I've said it over and over, from the producing companies, from NNPC personnel, from security men, from members of community, every cadre of people that you can, from the elites in the community, in the society, and I'm going to address that, everybody has some involvement. Are they doing it on behalf of the institutions? Absolutely not. There are criminals everywhere, and there are also good people everywhere. And I believe that majority of my workers are good people. But I'm not saying that there are no bad people in NNPC. They may be there, and they will be the part of the people that I told you will deal with them. Government will deal with them, will take them out. This is the point that I was trying to make. And this connects to the question around some big men. I think somebody asked a question around some big men that are doing and we are doing nothing about it. Please, if you know, tell us now. I can tell you they will not sleep in their houses today. I can tell you this, no one is exempt. If it is me, say it, I will not sleep in my house today. So no one is exempt. Everyone will be followed. That is why I said that the EFCC is following the cash. People who go and build houses without income. People who build skyscrapers without any legitimate business. People who buy cars that they know that not everybody knows that they can afford. Lifestyle changes that you can't explain. All these things are being followed, and we know that the law will catch up with all these people, and they will be disclosed, and they will be prosecuted. Then Jet A1 and diesel supply. What did you say? Okay, yes, I'm sure you are referring to the question you asked the Chief of Naval Staff, where he made statements around the volume of crude oil. Let us distinguish issues. When you say you are losing 700,000 barrels per day of crude oil, we mean it. It is opportunity lost. There is no company that will produce oil and then you lose 80% of that and continue to produce the oil. So we deliberately shut down the pipelines whenever we see these infractions getting to a limit that we cannot control, that are not possible to be managed. So that means as we speak today, we know for sure there is at least 700 lock-ins that we could have produced that we can't do because we cannot guarantee the safety of the pipeline. Of course, there are some technical issues. Needless to say that not 100% of that is due to theft. There are technical issues. We are responding to the technical issue, but majority of this is associated with reasons around crude oil theft. Now, when you say how much of it is stolen, and I've seen the statistics, it is impossible to have barges sailing 200,000 barrels per day. I agree with the Chief of Naval Staff. You need thousands of barges to do this. But don't forget also that we have seen lines connected that have shown you the size of the pipeline itself, running for 3 to 4 kilometers. It means that it goes to, can you go back? It goes to some of those barges loaded directly. Can you go back? I'll show you the vessel. Go back. No, the vessel. So this vessel, as you can see, when you lay pipeline and hoses, you can fill them and go. So this is not a barge. So when this happens, and which I also accepted, that enormous work has been done by the Navy, and they have contained the marine activity, but this is reality. This was arrested by the Navy carrying crude oil. So if you can do this, we believe very strongly that up to 200,000 barrels of oil is stolen, but not in barges. And of course, this is being contained. I think this is the point that I'm trying to. There's no distinction between what the Chief of Naval Staff has said and what I'm saying now, because it is true that you cannot do it with barges. But when you do at vessels of this nature, which is arrested by the Navy, and also when you have 295 or so cooking pots, even if they are taking 500 barrels per day, in each of these locations, you can see the scale of losses. So whether they are able to process and put it in the market is a different matter, but it's stolen. Thank you very much.
Running for time. CEO, please, can we need to end this.
Yes.
Sorry. When he's exiting, you can engage with him.
Please, let's be orderly. Please, let's be orderly.
The president has an event for 12.
Unfortunately, I don't have to give you the answer that you want. Yes, there's a question around why subsidy when the PIA said petroleum will be priced at commercial. Yes, the PIA is very clear that PMS or petroleum product will be priced at the market. But the PIA did not exclude any intervention of government. Government can decide to give any form of relief to its citizen. And that is why the the Appropriation Act 2022 clearly provided for this, and we are simply implementing this. So it's not incomplete with the PIA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we done?
I'm done.
Okay. Jet A1 and this.
Okay.
Okay. No, I'm not avoiding. And then Tompolo.
Sorry, I'm not avoiding. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry.
Part of the security intervention that we are doing is end-to-end. You must involve community members. You must involve government security agencies. You must deploy technology. And you must employ other soft means of ensuring that you are able to contain end-to-end, including the engagement of community members. What we did is to do three things. First, to ensure the government security agencies play their part. We have our Navy, we have the Army, we have the Department of Security Service. They are doing excellent job of containing this. But as you do this, sustenance is everything. And therefore, we also decided that we need private contractors to man the right of way and also operate outside the right of way, so that they can also join us to manage members of the community. And we don't have access to that. And therefore, we put up a framework where contractors were selected through a tender process, or people who can do it. Not everyone can do it. And Tompolo has just mentioned, we are dealing with corporate entities. He may have interest in the company, but we're not dealing with Tompolo. But we know that he has interest in that company. We know that we're engaging all other individuals who will be of help to us in this situation. This has happened severally over time. And the end result was that it was contained under a process like this, and we believe that we have taken the right decision. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm sure you are aware that Jet A1 and diesel are all deregulated products, including diesel. Diesel and Jet A1, we all know they are deregulated product. It's delivered into the market at its market cost. The only way you can have cheaper Jet A1 is to put subsidy on it or diesel. And there's no framework for subsidy on Jet A1 and diesel. All NNPC is doing is to balance the market
We intervene by bringing in products so that because we have access to cheaper product in the market, and we dampen the pricing so that consumers are not exploited by marketers unnecessarily or unduly. So this is what we are doing, and clearly it's just reflection of the market. Thank you very much.
Well, at this point, let me just say our thank yous to every stakeholder in this press briefing. You agree with me that the Group CEO sure knows his onions, and if we stay here another 1 hour, he will still be offering explanations and doing it convincingly. We want to thank you very much. Thank you for coming and clarifying some of these things. I also want to appreciate the team that came with him. Group Executive Director, Gas and Power, Abdul Kyari Ahmed. Welcome, sir. Group Executive Director, Downstream, Engineer Adeyemi Adetunji. You're welcome, sir. Group General Manager, Corporate Planning and Strategy, Orishe Meyiwa Eyeson. Welcome, huh? Group General Manager, Public Affairs, is our tribesman. Garibadin Mohammed, you're welcome. Mohammed Jingi, Business Advisor to Group CEO. So, we welcome every one of us here. Incidentally, Malam Garba Shehu was a past president, Nigeria Guild of Editors. I was a past president, and then the person who succeeded me as president of the Guild of Editors is Malam Garba Din Mohammed. So it's a reunion of the guild here today. Thank you. And then to every member of the Presidential Communication Team, starting with the arrowhead of these briefings, our dear Oge Modi, thank you. Loretta is here, Biodu is here, I've seen Tolu, every other member of the Presidential Communication Team. Uche, Uche, yes, another arrowhead, thank you everyone. And then to all members of the media, what will we do without you? Nothing. So we want to thank you for coming week after week when we do this and being faithful in reproducing the things that I've said. GMD or Group CEO, we hope to have you some other time. Thank you. Thank you.